All right, I've got our page set up to help us understand division of fractions. And this is going to help when you are solving word problems because you're going to be learning the difference right now between what actually is the difference between 2 and divided by 1/2 and 1/2 divided by 2 because they give you completely different answers. And this should help you think about reading a word problem and knowing which number goes first in the division problem. Um, this is on page 269. I've sent an attachment of all the problems because right now your sheet is blank. And so I sent the problems for you. They're on Google Classroom and in the email. Okay, so in my first problem, it says, how many half hours are there in 2 hours? Okay, so to me, this is asking me how many sets of half hours meaning half, right, are in 2 hours. So if I think about a clock, you go all the way around the clock, and that's 1 hour. So one of these clocks represents an hour. So this is asking me within 2 hours, okay, I'm starting with 2 hours, and I'm splitting it up, seeing how many half hours, splitting them in half, how many half hours are in 2 hours. And so I'm going to count. 1, okay, 2, 3, and 4. So my answer for this is 4. The equation, I started with my 2 hours, and I divided it, when I cut them in half, into sets of 1/2. Okay, so 2 divided by 1/2 is equal to 4. Now I'm going to show you the flip side. We already know, since I said this is what it was, and it's in the same color. We know I love to color code. Now we're going to see what the difference is for 1/2 divided by 2. Okay. For this, we're asking what is half an hour divided into two equal amounts of time. So I'm starting with half an hour. Okay. This is what I'm starting with, half an hour. And I'm dividing 1/2 into 2 parts. Okay, so if I have half an hour and I divide it into 2 parts, it's going to look something like this. I now split my clock, okay, into fourths. Okay, so what is half an hour divided into 2 equal amounts of time? My next step is counting how many pieces I have and writing that as a fraction. So we know this is 1/2. I took my 1/2 and then I divided it when I drew my line down. I split it into 2 pieces. Okay? That's going to give us 1/4 because I now have sets of 1/4. Okay? And to prove this, all we have to do is check our answers with keep, change, and flip. So for the one we just did, for example, I am keeping my 1/2. I'm keeping my 1/2. I'm changing my division to multiplication. And I am flipping. Remember, whole numbers, you put them over 1. I am, drew that arrow wrong. I apologize. And I am flipping this number to also equal 1/2. Multiply straight across, and oh, look at that, 1/4. Okay, so that one's correct. And I apologize for not checking this one at first, but we'll check it now. I'm keeping my 2, and again, whole number, put it over 1. So keep I'm changing my division to multiplication, and I'm flipping this fraction 2 over 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1, and that is equal to 4. Got the same thing. Okay? So you can really see when you start with a whole number, your answer is getting bigger. Your answer is getting bigger. There's a lot inside those two holes. Okay? And when you start with a fraction, your answer ends up getting smaller because we cut it into smaller pieces. Okay? So think about that as you are solving story problems. Does your answer need to get bigger? Okay? Or does it need to get smaller?